Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. If you'd like to listen on your phone to the broadcast 24/7, 605-477-3249.
Good morning.
John's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Doc Ram is with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hey.
There you go. Just listening to me, I laugh. Can't believe it.
Well, I was thinking about Barry Satoro, and I was chatting with our engineer just before the broadcast started that there was an image of backward hat Barry on an island, a private island with Sir Richard Branson, and I guess Richard Branson flew Barry over to this island, and they were just vacationing for a number of days. And there he is, the former CEO of Corporation USA with his hat on backwards. And I was relating a story to our engineer, John, at GCN, that my first day in class, teaching a high school class, I had about 60 students in this very large classroom, a computer type classroom where we talked about and built computers in Virginia. And most of the boy students wore these baseball caps, kind of like Barry would wear. And they were in class with their hats on. And so I introduced myself, and then I stood there and I kind of looked up at the ceiling, and my classroom was very, very large. It was the size of a gymnasium, literally. So I looked up, and I didn't see anything special up toward the ceiling, and it was a very tall ceiling. And I stood where I was, and I did a very slow 360 looking around, kind of confused. And I said, I really don't see anything that bright. What, you guys have hats on now. What's the reason for wearing your hats inside? And they couldn't explain it to me. So I guess it was a thing that guys do, and you see guys with these baseball caps. And so I told them that that's fine. However, it's not acceptable to wear their hats into the classroom. So I was probably the only teacher who prevented students from wearing hats in the classroom. And I was probably the only teacher who made his students wear a uniform in a public school classroom. And I told them that I would provide the uniforms. I would provide the shirts, the embroidered shirts with the class name on them. And they were like a plum color, and that they could wear khaki slacks of their choosing with that, or khaki skirts, shoes, a belt, and no jewelry. And they could have their hair any natural color they wanted, but they couldn't dye their hair purple or blue or green, or any color that was not a natural color. And you know what? I got away with it, Rick.
One of the things that I'm doing right now is in Grants Pass, we have a lot of churches. This is a very heavy, not so much Christian, but church community. There's probably a church on every single street in Grants Pass, or more. And so I'm going to all the different churches each Sunday do one each Sunday, to see what the distinctional differences are between the message being given, the way the message is being given, their emphasis on kids, their emphasis on witnessing, or their emphasis on missionary work, etc. And I'm just trying to find something that I can feel more comfortable with. And I finally defined myself as an Essene with tendencies toward Quakerism. And I'm militant about it. No, I am. I'm, it's not so much about Jesus. It's about Jesus's teachings and where he got them and those foundations. And you know, if you actually study some of this from the different ministers' point of view, it will get you to the same place. You'll find that all the different religions have certain elements in common with each other. Now they try to make distinctions, between the Missouri Synod Lutheran and the American Synod Lutheran. But in fact, you're not supposed to wear a hat inside a church or sanctuary. Sanctuary means is one of the things where you should take in reverence, like meeting a woman, you take your hat off in front of her as an older moray or rule of code, for ethics. And I'm noticing how different churches are different about that. And I went to a Methodist church and watched several people wear their scarves or hats on that were different. Now, Catholic, you have to have your head covered. So it's interesting the different values and the way they try to distinguish one sets of belief over another, and why some are wrong and the others are right. And yet, it all comes back to Essene philosophy, and that came out of India. And I think that people should realize that the normal Jesus that people associate actually spent almost 20 years in India as a seeker. And that is where a lot of his grace or nam came from. That's the word that is normally used for grace, is nam. Having nam, a balance of things, the way you would treat another human being, like you would yourself.
I've been seeing images. I've been seeing images of President Trump in meetings, and I saw one just before the broadcast, and he was seating a lady at a meeting, and he was holding her chair for her, and that was the term that I was taught. So when a lady comes in, you stand behind the chair and you help her sit down and push the chair in. And I was also taught that I was also, and you see Donald Trump doing that, and you see images of him outside the White House when he has a visitor. He just doesn't say to his people, "Oh they're here, go let them in." He goes out to the front and welcomes them himself. Opens the door and so forth. And I was taught that very same thing by my parents, that, how to eat with a knife and a fork and a spoon, where to put them, how to hold them and so forth. And I was taught that when you have a lady companion and she's coming toward your car to get in, if you're going to be operating the vehicle and be behind the wheel, you let her in first. You open the door for her, you hold the door, you get her seated, and then you close the door, and then you get in.
The old Bronx tale on whether or not you determine if she's a keeper is if she reaches over after you've done that and unlocks your car from the inside before you have to unlock it from the outside with a key. That's how you know if she's a keeper.
and well, you're exactly right, and that was, and I've never really said this on the air, but that was one of the tests that unwritten
test. That's correct.
Unwritten test. And by the way, Mrs. Finelli passed that test.
Yeah, most women have to be trained just like they train us.
But no, seriously, and that there were a couple tests. They couldn't smoke. And we didn't have to worry about being branded back then. There were, back in the the 70s, the late 60s, women weren't
Early
tattooed.
50s.
But no, seriously, that was one of the tests that if I took a lady out for a date, if that person did not unlock my door, it was a sign that she wasn't paying attention enough.
Yeah.
And wasn't aware enough, and didn't have enough poise and balance to meet my standards, and that would be the last date right then and there. But Mrs. Finelli did pass the test. So yesterday I was in Springfield, and I don't know if I mentioned I bought a diesel Mercedes, a 1996, and I'd been working on it and tweaking it, tuning it, and doing some small repairs on it. So I wanted to take it out for about 100 plus mile trip to see how well it ran. And this particular Mercedes, like most of the ones that we have, if you use the key, there's only a lock cylinder on the driver's door. Now, you could always push the button, but I didn't do that because I've been trained by my Chevy pickup truck, which has manual locks, and you put the key in the door to unlock the door. Well, I was letting Mrs. Finelli in on the passenger side of this little diesel, and I felt kind of silly because I went to put the key in the door to unlock it for her, and there's no lock cylinder on the passenger door. It's just this plug in there, and you can only unlock this particular Mercedes on the driver's door. So I went to open the door, and she's standing there, and I'm looking at her like, I can't open the door.
Leave it to the Germans, man. That's the way it works.
Yeah. So I walked. I felt like I had not really accomplished what I needed to, and I felt at a loss. And I said, I'm going to have to go around, open the driver's door first, and then I can open your door. But it was, kind of the thing that I've been doing for a long time, and it didn't feel right not letting her in the car first. But how often do you see guys open the door for their wives today? And I think the answer is very seldom. And the current generation has no clue that that's even a possibility, right?
They don't think of it that way. Yes, that's correct.
Right.
I wanted
Rick,
to formally thank everybody for the support I've been receiving, by the way. It's unbelievable. Thank you, Vincent, for having me, allowed me to talk about my battle against Amazon and Ingram. It gets worse, and I will update you later today on what is happening at this moment.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll come back and talk about it after the break. Doc Ram's with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, docram.com. Rick, our website is down. usaprepares.com is down. It's been hacked. I talked to the web hosting people. They said that we have been hacked, we've been infected, and they took us down until we can repair it.
Is this working with Ed?
No, I have not talked to Ed. I'm going to see if I can fix it myself.
He helped me quickly. That was during the Thanksgiving period when they did a DOS attack on me, and might be very helpful. Ed is excellent and put a second prophylactic over my website that now does not allow indiscriminate like normal. And the hack that you had may not have been personal. It's hard to say. The timing is the way I always go on things. Like, when did it happen? As the timing always seems to hold a key as to whether it's intentional or not. Ed's very good, and
he's
put some extra
excellent.
things in front of my website that were not there previous.
Ed Marvini is the guy that we're talking about. He's a fabulous.
Yeah, he's helped me tremendously. I couldn't say enough about his help. Really.
Well, let me share this. Let me share this with you. I haven't used the words Hillary Clinton and the word dyke in the same paragraph in a couple weeks. So I don't know if that.
Are we talking about Holland dikes and plugging the holes in a leaky bucket, or something else there?
Well, I haven't used the term Anthony's Wiener in weeks as well, maybe even a month. However, I have been approached by Anthony's Wiener's people, and they've told me in so many terms, knock it off. They've threatened me with legal action. Maybe that's it, because I didn't respond very well to their threats. But I can tell you this, Rick. The two things that have gotten me in the most trouble in broadcasting, the very two things have related to water. And I'm not kidding, WATER. When I was on a pretty large station that covered 97 counties at least that's what they claimed, in Missouri years ago, I was talking about fluoride and being poisoned by the city manager. And after months, about 7 months of me doing this every day, telling our listeners to call him up, I give out Greg Burris's number, the city manager, explain that we're paying him $200,000 a year to poison us, our children, and our parents with every drop of water that they provided that we drank. He had it with me. Early on, they got so many calls in the city hall that we were tying up the switchboard, and they were annoyed. They were really fed up with me, but they didn't back down. They just kept poisoning us through the water supply, and they won. They absolutely won, and I was not allowed to continue broadcasting. It's as simple as that. Of course, I mentioned the Chinese factory outlet, and we took them on. We took on the Baptist church because they and their henchmen called the police on me and tried to have me arrested for criminal trespass.
I remember all of that when you talked about it previous, yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is, so I've done a number of things, but the one thing that really bit me was water. They don't like the fact that we talk about water being poisoned. And I've been talking about I've taken on the hot water heater industry with their poisoning us with the aluminum anode rods that most hot water heaters seem to have, and how we are drinking and bathing and filling our pores with hot water in the shower and in the bathtub with aluminum, and how dementia and Alzheimer's seems to be the
related
plague. Yeah. So that's bitten me. Now, that seems to be the thing that I'm tying the takedown of our website. Now, you've had a plague as well with your website, and so I've asked you a number of times on this broadcast, what have you said? What have you talked about that has caused this? And do you have a better feel?
No, I probably never really know if it was someone close to me or just greed on someone's part. It always usually comes around about money.
Well, yeah, and you're absolutely right. So what it did was it shut down our commerce. We'll be right back. Let's talk about Amazon and what's happened to you. Doc Ram's with us. So, Rick, there's been an ongoing saga with Amazon and your publisher. Would you like to give us an update as to how well that's working?
The most recent one is that I've had beaches with both Amazon and Ingram for bootlegging my titles. They have been doing that. And so last week I made a plea for people to realize that if you wanted to get something from me, I'm a very small publishing house, and everything that comes from my house is from me, and I've autographed it. And Amazon I haven't had a sale for a book on Amazon in more than 2 months. Now, they've completely boycotted me. If someone places an order on Amazon, it goes to somebody else. And that's impossible because I'm the only publisher, and I don't have any third-party distributors. I don't. I tried to remain very small, just like opening the door for a woman. It's old school. And what's happened is that Ingram, I placed an order with Ingram on Monday, And on Monday night, I received an email that they no longer cared for my business. And they gave me 45 days to find another printer, and that makes Lightning Source, which is a division of Ingram, look extremely guilty, and in a court of law will be admissible evidence for, malice and intent. And I'm going to, because they have given me special handlers. I noticed how when I call now, instead of having a representative at Lightning Source, I had a special team of experts to help me. And the first one that my girlfriend called on Monday to place the order did not want to talk to me because I was, quote, abrasive, end quote. It's a setup. And I want everybody out there to understand that there is no such thing as customer service anymore. It's all about protecting their ass in terms of wrongdoing and accountability. And Amazon and Ingram and now Lightning Source, which is a division of Ingram, are all guilty. And guess what else? I have an old friend who he started out as a public defender. Then he became an assistant DA in 3 different regions here in Grants Pass area, and then retired and became intellectual property dispute lawyer. And he has taken me on, and the first thing we did was fix my leaky bucket. Why have I not received a single order from Amazon? I think my account has been hijacked. And like a website where the Ukrainian or Pakistani come in and just indiscriminately look for leaky holes in your website or structure and what you're trying to do. And what's happening now is I'm getting people that have heard my message calling or writing me wanting introduction to my lawyer, because my lawyer is really interested in knocking down these giants. And it's time for a class action suit. If you have, like Rich Shealy has contacted him, others that have had problems with Amazon, it's time we keep these people accountable. I have yet to speak to anybody from Amazon, and this is over 6 months of, actively forming what they call tickets, problems, where I'll submit a ticket that there's a problem here or there. The only order I'm getting now is the Modern Alchemist, and if you'll go on Amazon, you'll notice that Amazon doesn't even have me as the author. It's unbelievable. It is, I believe, with some intent, whether or not Amazon is culpable, they are. They're culpable even if they didn't do it individually, like as a policy thing, because they're also responsible for policing their inner groups. And my guess is there's a rogue unit for hire that will go in and do this for a fee. And I can't prove that. I probably never will be able to actually know what happened literally, but I'm going to make them all pay for it. And they picked on the wrong person. Was the one that was chosen to train SEALs. I don't give up by definition. I'm kind of really upset. I don't think it's been very fair. And actually, as of last week, I literally qualified for food stamps and got a PIN number. And this week, I no longer qualify. Thank you for your support, all of you. It's like in the military. Thank you for your service. I am telling you, there is a war going on out there between small publishers like myself trying to write and this crap that's going on with print on demand, POD. That's what it's called. Print on demand. And there's only several people in the world that can do that because those machines are extremely expensive. They're huge. And right now I know where there are several of them. They're all either owned by Amazon. Amazon Prime will print your book. If you buy it on Amazon Prime, will print your book the day of the order. And it is a bootleg. You can absolutely guarantee it. Now, I don't know if you have distribution with Ingram. That may be a different thing, but I can tell you that my publisher didn't, and they were shocked. Whether or not they do anything about it, it's mostly, most people figure, like my one lawyer said, I don't want to spend 2.5 years in court on this particular case. And that's what they'll do. They'll stonewall you. I have yet to speak to anybody from legal, and yet I have an acknowledgement from legal out of Seattle with Amazon acknowledging that they're in error. I am going to make them pay if it takes the last thing, and the last thing I do. It will happen. And I basically just wanted to thank everybody, truly, for the kind words, support. Jesus, I'm meeting certain individuals that are becoming closer friends of mine because they either offer, insight, direction, or support, like financial. I'm not interested in donations. What I want to do is sell my books. If I can sell my books, that's a good way to support me. I don't want money. What I want is fair wage, and I'll be glad to earn it. Does that mean I'm too proud?
Rick, you're talking. Rick, you want to do what those like us want to do. We want to earn our way.
Do the right thing and earn my own daily bread. I don't want to have it given to me. I want to earn it, and somebody has stolen my life. And I am angry about it because, in fact, what I am doing in writing, I'm probably, as one person said, closer to doing my purpose on earth than anyone she's ever known. That's what I do. I'm a writer. I didn't know that until my little girl died of leukemia, and I had to reinvent myself. And once I started writing, I realized that that's why I'm here. And they tried to stop that. And that, according to Aleister Crowley, is Liber Oz. Say hello to my little friend. I'm pissed. I'm really upset about the whole thing. And there isn't much I can do as a David. I'm going to need a lot of outside help from God, aiming that rock just right to drop those Goliaths.
Doing the same thing to us here at USA Prepares, Rick. Yeah, I understand. You're doing the same thing to us, Rick.
Bureaucracies. There are inner parts of cells that have no accountability, no oversight, and do what they darn well want
to. Who's the guy that bought the property, the Facebook guy, Zuckerberg, right? Didn't he buy property in Hawaii? And he wants a nice view of the ocean, and so he is causing problems for previous or land owners around him, and so the plan is for him to tie them up in court, and of course it'll cost $200,000 per. No problem for him, and he can just stonewall them until they can't afford to fight him anymore. And that's what I've been reading. Maybe I've read that wrong, but it sure seems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not even about money. It's about control of something which is even more than money.
Mm-hmm. And the only avenue that I think we, the little villagers, have is the internet, and take to the internet and use blogs and build websites and expose the corruption, the people who are doing this damage to the villagers, and help their true worth be established in the public. And what I mean by that is, if they're doing bad things, you let everybody know that they're doing bad things, and you have to be accurate with your information. You have to use facts, and avoid name calling, but just tell it like it is. And they hate that. Politicians absolutely, positively hate that. I didn't realize this, Rick, but when I ran for school board office and I put that ad in the paper, consider voting for Vincent Finelli, fire the entire school board, one director at a time, consider voting for Vincent Finelli, the only candidate who will not make your child urinate in a cup. That was what I said, in my advertisement for running for that particular directorship. I didn't realize that made it to the state capitol. Years later, they're still talking about, that this guy, did that publicly. And he said, that was what he said during his campaign. And my campaign was just that. That was the entire campaign right then and there. And I was not known in this village. I just moved here, and I was outraged by what was happening. And literally, only a handful of people knew me. And I secured 1/8 of the votes against the incumbent, who was very, very well known. I lost, but I made them pay attention that the fight was on. Doc Graham's with us, and what can we talk about? Cruise ships. Let's talk about cruise ships when we come back, and the air pollution surrounding a cruise ship, and why you probably don't want to be on a cruise ship. Rick Miller's with us. Rick, when I lived in Virginia, I did a lot of the farm maintenance, actually all of the farm maintenance and the vehicle maintenance, the trucks and the cars and the tractors and so forth, myself. And when I changed the oil, I would collect the oil, put it in a drain pan, let it drain overnight, and then pour it into these gallon containers. And I went into the auto parts store, and I said, actually several of these auto parts store, and they had signs on the windows that said, we recycle oil. So I would bring them the oil, the used motor oil from diesel engines, tractor engines, truck engines, so forth, car engines. And I'd bring it to them, and they would take it into the back, and sometimes they'd say, oh, come on, bring it back here. And I'd pour it into this large container. And the container had a very large screen to keep out the chunks the size of maybe a dime. But things smaller than that would pretty much fall right through the screen. And I said, so what do you guys do with this oil? And I thought the answer was going to be, well, we refine it. We make it into refined lubricants, chainsaw lubricant, chainsaw bar lubricant or something like that. I was absolutely surprised at what I learned the answer was. The answer is the same answer that I learned many times over in different states when I asked the same question. So what do you guys do with this oil? Well, it goes into ships and it's used as a fuel. Now, what we're talking about is large ocean-going ships use this used motor oil as fuel to propel the ships. And there's a post on the internet, dailymail.co.uk, that says cruise ship air is 60 times filthier, this is their terms, than fresh sea breeze. Passengers with lung conditions are warned not to stay on deck for too long. Concentration of ultrafine particles was up to 20 times worse than in port cities. So port cities with high concentrations of people and pollution is cleaner air than being on the deck of a cruise ship. And the study, according to this article, linked the particles to lung disease, heart attacks, strokes, asthma. And so there you have a high concentration of particles, small particles, coming from the smokestacks of the cruise ships that the passengers on the deck get a chance to breathe. So we may, I guess the point is that we may think we're doing a good thing by recycling oil. And actually, it's being used by cruise ships and other ships as fuel, and it's being burned without being refined. So all of those contaminants that are in your motor oil are being burned and going up in smoke, and you get a chance to breathe them at some point as these particles circle the earth. Rick, do you have any comments or thoughts on?
Well, yeah, this is a common problem with our so-called recycling program right now. Where do you think all the aluminum cans got put?
Well, wouldn't that be into the atmosphere? I was looking out.
Well, there it is. Read it and weep. It's, the whole thing about capitalism and its concepts of structure, and how did Gecko put it in Wall Street? Greed is good.
Rick, when I lived in Virginia, we had in our little hamlet of 500 people, we had these green dumpsters, and they were on town property, out of sight. And if you wanted to, 24 hours a day, you could bring your trash, your household trash. And if it was in a cardboard box, fine. If it was in a garbage bag with a tie string, fine. Whatever it was, you just threw it in this dumpster and it would disappear. It would just disappear. When we come back, I'll tell you where it went, and then I'll tell you how they improved it, and the moral of the story. I think you'll be quite surprised, class, at what you're going to learn. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. DocRam.com. DocRam.com. So, Rick, hour number 1 at the final segment, I was talking about these green dumpsters in Virginia. What we're talking about is the recycling hoax, or at least what I've seen. So in these green dumpsters, they were positioned in town but out of sight, and you could go 24 hours a day, and you could throw out your trash, your kitchen trash, whatever you had, just throw it in the dumpster, and they'd be hauled away a couple times a week, and they went someplace. And no one really cared about it because their trash was removed. Well, the county decided that they would improve that system, and they would install what they called a convenience center. And instead of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, this was a part-time operation, and they put a part-time person in there, a guard, if you will, to make sure that their trash was going in the right receptacles. So, for example, instead of just throwing your wine bottles, your beer bottles, your mayonnaise jars in the dumpster, as before, you would have to wash it out. So if you had wine bottles, if they were clear, they would go in one bin. If they were brown, they'd go in another bin. If they were blue or green, they'd go in another bin. Your newspapers wouldn't just go in a dumpster. They would go into a recycling large container, and they'd be flattened and so forth, and they had to be clean. And if they were dirty, they'd go just in a general purpose dumpster. Refrigerators and washers and dryers would go in another area. Well, what I found out was that we washed out these bottles and jars and put them in the glass recycling containers, and they would be hauled away. And then they would be dumped in the same place that our previous dumpster trash would be dumped in the same landfill. So we thought that we were doing a good thing for the environment, and the trash was going in the same place. So
that's because, just FYI, all your trash management is now managed by Mafia. Every single thing. Your Southern Oregon Sanitation, they're all, it's where they invested is in these landfills. And these landfills are going to become as toxic as Fukushima.
That's a really good point, Rick. And one of the largest fights of my life was fighting with a company called Allied Waste, the number 2 trash company in the United States.
The key word is Allied.
Yeah. And what they do is they come to these small counties, these rural counties, and they say, hey, you can have revenue. Tell you what we do. We'll just find an area and we'll build this dump, this landfill, this sanitary landfill, and we will charge by the pound for those who want to bring their trash. And we'll manage that, and we'll have these scales, and we'll weigh the pickup trucks when they come in, and we'll weigh them when they go out, and we'll charge them for each load. And we'll, make sure that there's a good, safe place. Well, they wanted to build one of those on top of an aquifer in the county where I lived in Virginia. And we fought it, and it was a heck of a fight. I mean, these guys know how to fight. They know how to attack reputations. They know how to turn the government employees against the people. They know how to use the media. They know how to use the right words to discredit the villagers who are not experienced in fighting these corporate thugs. And really what they do is they want to find a location where there's a highway or an intersection of a highway, of two highways, where they can bring these trash trucks in. And they say that, this landfill will last years. And then what they do is when they come into this, once they build this landfill, they then accelerate the amount of trash that they bring in, and they close it as quickly as possible. And the idea is they set up a separate corporation for each one of these landfills, so that once it starts leaking, not if it starts leaking, once it starts leaking, and the groundwater is then polluted, contaminated, and rendered useless, then you can't sue them because, well, it's just a little corporation that is just for that landfill, and there are no assets.
It's even better than slots or the numbers or drugs. Everybody has trash.
Yes. Yep. And
I remember when it used to be buried on your own farm and you had your own dump. I have repeatedly, when I bought a farm, would find those dump spots on the farm where they would do it. What I have done differently is I used to have boneyards where I would have all my glass, my ceramic, bricks, things like that, or wood piles that I could go out and fabricate. Today, things have been so designed and marketed that it's cheaper and easier and almost impossible to repair something. It's easier to simply recycle it. And when you start talking about phosphorescent screens and computer chips and the toxicity of some of these heavy metals that are used in solid-state physics and computers, after a period of time, you have serious problems in Africa because of mining. And all the rest of what accounts for greed is good. I need to start pointing things like this because people don't realize the full implication of participation in some of these technologies. Cell phones are toxic. They're worse than cigarettes. It's okay because nobody cares at this point like they did alcohol or tobacco. But at some point, people are going to start to wake up.
Let's talk about cell phones for just a couple minutes, Rick. I've been on this bend about cell phones, and it really bothers me because I was in an elevator yesterday with Mrs. Finelli, and there was this woman who was texting away and totally distracted. She didn't know what button to push. She pushed the wrong button. It caused everyone on the elevator inconvenience because she's not paying attention. She's looking at her cell phone and she's hitting buttons on the elevator, buttons that she didn't mean to hit. So she just thinks it's okay because she's distracted. Then she gets off the elevator on the same floor, and then she's confused, doesn't know where she is, looking around, standing in my way, Mrs. Finelli's way, holding up traffic because she's not paying attention to where she is. She's paying attention to her cell phone. Well, there's a post on the internet and it talks about unattended children will be, it's about restaurants. And these restaurant owners are furious with parents who are not paying attention to their children. Now, why aren't they paying attention to their children? The only response that I can think of is that the children are not being paid attention to because the parents are paying attention to their cell phones.
They're distracted, yeah.
Yes, they're distracted. So here, I'm going to read you some signs that are images. And I'd post them on USA Prepares if I could, if our website were working, but it's not, so I can't. But anyway, it says, these are signs at restaurants. Unattended children will be given coffee and taught to swear. Warning, children left unattended will be sold to the circus. We love kids. Please keep yours at your table. Unattended kids will be given a shot of espresso and a free puppy. Thanks. Another one.
And how many people actually notice the humor?
Yeah, another one. All unattended children will be thrown in the dumpster. Warning, children left unattended will be traded for donuts. Pets welcome. Pets welcome. Children must be leashed.
I know, isn't it wonderful? I love America in that sense of it. It's about time we start laughing at ourselves because we have actually sold ourselves out.
We have. Another one. To avoid accident or injury to your child whilst the little darling is running around this establishment, why not handle the little puppet to a member of the staff who will be happy to nail it to your table for you? Well-behaved children welcome. The rest will be made into pies. Unattended children will be sold to gypsies. Supervision not provided. Notice to all children and adults, there will be no crying, screaming. So these restaurants have had it. Here's one from a burger joint, a grill house. All well-behaved children welcomed. Naughty kids will be turned into burgers. I really like their humor. But they've had it. You can tell that these restaurants are at their wits' end with the parents not paying attention to
and that, of course,
flesh and blood.
Changes the child and the way the child grows up as the way it is in teaching his children. That's how pedophilia and all the rest of it is propagated. It's a learned behavior, and it starts with the parents.
There's another post that I was reading, and I'll have to paraphrase this because I don't have it in front of me. It was about daycare and parents picking up their children from the daycare center at the end of the daycare day. So the parents have traded their responsibilities probably to earn money so they can pay for their cell phones, and they go to pick up their children. And what the daycare this particular daycare company did was they've had it. They've had it with the parents not paying attention to their children, paying attention to their cell phones, looking down at their cell phones. And the children are saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." And it's the equivalent of "not now, don't bother me." The children are saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, I'm so glad to see you. I missed you all day. Wow, thanks for coming." And mommy is not paying attention. These cell phones have I believe, are one of the single greatest destroyers of the American family. I really believe that. We don't even eat dinner together without having cell phones right on the table or on our laps, and we look down and we text, tweet, and say, "I can't talk to you now. I'm with my family." That's ridiculous. Time out. Time out. Don't be on tap 24/7. Don't do it. Resist it. Class, tomorrow we're going to be teaching about electricity, hour number 1. We're going to talk about how much electricity devices consume around the home and how to tell at a glance whether a device consumes a lot of electricity, increases your electric bill a lot, or whether it's a much smaller amount. That's hour number 1. Miles from the European Union will be with us for hour number 2. I think you'll find both of those broadcasts quite enlightening. I'm telling you this because our website is down and you can't find out who's going to be on tomorrow because USA Prepares is down until I fix it. Rick, septic systems. Now, I was chatting with a guy within the last couple of weeks about septic systems, and what I found something very interesting. We're talking about recycling hoaxes. Well, this kind of fits with that discussion. So I was chatting with this gentleman, and he works for a company that pumps out septic systems. So a septic system is what rural America uses in many cases for solid and liquid waste disposal. And what happens is what goes down the drain at rural houses and and companies, goes into a tank, kind of a holding tank. The solids settle out toward the bottom, and then the liquids travel on down toward either a leach field or a lagoon. And a lagoon is a pond, if you will, with a fence around it, and the sun disinfects and evaporates the liquids. So that, or you have laterals that are in the ground, that where the water, the liquids, are absorbed by the ground, and then the grass grows, and then ultimately those the liquid evaporates into the atmosphere, and that's part of the water cycle, or it is the water cycle. Well, I talked to this septic system professional, and he told me that in Missouri you can get a permit to apply human waste from septic systems on fields. So I just wanted to let our class know, and I'd like to get your opinion. So whatever goes down your drain or down your toilet gets pumped out, put in a tank, and then it can be applied to fields for disinfecting via the sun. Now, in our case, chemicals don't go down the drain, other than, let's say, the dishwashing detergent, the soap that we use for showers when we flush the toilet, the clothes washing machine, and that's kind of typical. However, what if we painted our house and washed our paint rollers and brushes and washed them, and that water with the paint solids and so forth went down the drain, and let's say we had other things, and let's say we had a house where someone was being treated with chemotherapy. Chemotherapy destroys septic system bacteria, absolutely destroys it, and renders them hardly functional. Now, the question that I asked this gentleman was, what happens with the sewage that you pump out from someone who is being treated with chemotherapy? We are not in our household, but I'm sure that some households are. And he said, well, good point. Instead of applying this to fields as fertilizer, he will take it to the sewage treatment plant. Rick, do you have any concerns about pumping out septic systems? And
black goo comes to mind. I don't know, man. The whole concept of waste and waste management is creepy to me. And it seems like there's a whole lot better way of managing our sewage than the way we currently enjoy it. And that includes outhouses and how you can recycle certain kinds of manures. You know, we found that all the inorganics in a closed system, you're in deep space, you have a closed system, you can't get your products from Earth or anywhere else, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and this is it. You found that 1/3 chicken manure, 1/3 rabbit manure, and 1/3 worm casings gave all the inorganic salts needed to grow anything in space. And that was something we discovered back in 1970. And so human waste could be used, for example, in feeding certain kinds of algae that would feed certain kinds of fish in a closed system or aquaculture format. And every single home needs to think about how to recycle water and sewage as part of their infrastructure for being a sustainable lifeboat.
Doc Ram's with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and been talking about the recycling hoax. And Rick, back in I think it was the 1970s and the 1980s, there was a term, and I may have this wrong, but it's one of these two. It's either Philly soil or Philly sludge. And what was happening is Philadelphia waste treatment facility was taking the sludge, drying it in the sun, and then making it available to gardeners. So if you wanted some recycled human waste, recycled hospital waste, whatever went down the sewer system in Philadelphia, fetuses, whatever went down the drain, that was disinfected, if you will, with chlorine, put in the sun to bake, and then it was scooped up, and you could go get it for free, and you could put that free fertilizer on your garden if you wanted. And we were told that in the United States, we don't use human waste as fertilizer. Japan does, other countries do, but certainly not the United States. Here's an article I'd like to share. It'll take about 2 minutes, and I'd love to hear your comments. And it's from a website called sludgenews.org. And it says the majority of sewage sludge is hauled away in trucks and disposed on American farms. Some is given away as solid compost. Some is dried and made into pellets, bagged, and sold as fertilizer. And some sludge is being blended into bagged fertilizers. And then it says that there are branded products containing sewage sludge. And I'm going to give you the names of some of these brands so that you can hear this for yourself. And you may see some of these products at the outlet near you. And here they are: All Grow, Granulite, Chesapeake Sunshine, Earth Mate, Nutrigreen, Metro Grow, Org Grow. Now that would be Baltimore, Maryland, or ORGRO. Bay State Fertilizer, that's Boston, Massachusetts. Growco, Seattle, Washington. Silva Grow, Seattle, Washington. Ocean Grow, New Jersey. Tegro, Tacoma, Washington. Sound Grow, that's in Pierce County, Washington.
By the way, Washington, when I grew up in Seattle, we started recycling metal and bottles and paper to be separated from other kinds of trash back in the early 60s.
Yep. And
that's
in Michigan,
why you're going to see that. And by the way, another example would be the Martian and how he survived on the planet Mars in growing his food.
Yeah. Yeah. Great video. If you want to watch that, The Martian, I believe we saw it on Netflix, I think. I'm not sure, but excellent video. Yeah, and it's being on your own. And what do you do if you're stranded? And, what do you do? And that's what he did. Mill Organite, and that's from Wisconsin. We Care Compost, New York. Compost Tea, Pennsylvania. Eco Compost. Dillo Dirt. Glacier Gold. Earth Blends. Agrisoil. Earth Life. Top Grow. Enviro Soil. Enviro BioBlend. Landscaper's Advantage. Compro. Main Mix. And there are others. Growers Blend. Unity Fertilizer. Miracle Grow Organic Choice Garden Soil. So those are some of the names, the branded names of human sludge. So, Rick, if a person chooses to do that, that's one thing. I don't know what's in this sludge, so I don't plan on using it here at our farm. I don't plan on doing that. And do you think that's a good thing or not a good thing to use it?
I don't know. I can hardly hear you. Have you noticed how bad the quality of our signal is between us?
It seems like whenever we talk about something really important that affects just about everybody, we have problems. Right? Well, let's talk about
we're
this.
Over the target? Isn't that how you put it to me?
Yeah. Here's another one that I think is over the target. So in Cornwall, Cornwall, in the European Union, actually in the United Kingdom, there's this village, and there's a high concentration of air pollution in this village. And so what do you do when there's air pollution? And they say, well, it's those darn diesels, those diesel trucks, diesel buses, diesel cabs, diesel vehicles. And if it wasn't for them, things would be a lot better. So what do they do to solve this problem of nitrogen oxides? And they say around 40,000 deaths a year are caused by air pollution in the United Kingdom, many a result of nitrogen dioxide pumped from diesel engines. And it's nitrogen dioxide is a pollutant that can often be seen as a reddish-brown smog over many areas. Now, class, if you watch videos on TV and you see the distant view of the city, you'll see these brown clouds, and it's like a dome over the city. If you happen to fly into a city and you're looking at a distance to your destination of a city, you'll see this brown dome over the city. I mean, I've seen it in the 1970s, as far back as the 1970s, as far as I can remember, early days of flying for me. Anyway, I don't fly very much, and I don't want to breathe that soup. But so here's what they're doing in Cornwall. This is just unbelievable to me. So the officials are saying, you know what, this pollution is such a serious problem, we can't allow the people to be affected. So we are going to force them from their homes. We are going to take their homes so that they won't live there and be subject to this pollution. They're going to steal their homes. Now, I can't imagine that happening in the United States without projectiles flying. I can't imagine that. But here we're talking about, they're talking about stealing these people's homes. I guess we'll have to pay for them. But, yeah, I know you've lived there and your families have lived there for, decades and generations. But, it's so dangerous. We are going to keep you safe and we're going to steal your home. Now, what's wrong with attacking the problem? The problem is too much pollution. But you can't stop commerce. You can't stop the buses, trucks, taxis, and so forth. So let's just get rid of the people that happen to be in the presence of this pollution. Rick, if someone said, in your wildest imagination, think about the worst thing that they can do to these people, what would that be? That would not have occurred to me, to throw the people out who are being surrounded by pollution caused by other people.
Oh man, you gotta love it.
I'll tell you what, in our neck of the woods, there would be broken noses for a start. That'd be the start. Rick, on your website, or on your Facebook page, docram.com, you've got a post about asteroids. Seems like we should be a little more concerned than we ever have been. Is that true, or am I reading this correctly?
Did you notice inside some information that, 2 days ago, we had a planet killer just go between the Earth and the Moon, and nobody mentioned it in national news.
Right.
A planet killer. The end of days? Oh, well, it didn't happen, so I guess it's okay. Listen, they're blanketing everything. There is something out between the sun and Earth that is emitting massive quantities of electrons and changing the magnetosphere, and why everybody's so grumpy and irritable. It's an increase in alpha waves. And when I say that, beta, gamma, you have, it's beta waves, the electrons. We're getting streamed hard right now, and nobody gets it. If you go outside in normal sunlight, you will find it's almost as if you're on a snowfield and you need sunglasses to screen the light. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's hard on the body and it's hard on the soul. And it's causing people to have road rage and anger when they would normally otherwise not.
Just before the broadcast class, Rick called me and he said he didn't hear from me and he wanted to make sure I was okay. And normally I call Rick a few minutes before the broadcast, and I hadn't gotten to that point yet. So about 15 minutes before airtime, Rick called me, and I mentioned that I wanted to talk to him about this. And I said, Rick, here's something I've noticed. I've noticed that our cats, and we have many cats here at the house. I think we've got 4 of them. Yeah, we've got 4 cats. And they are grumpy toward each other. They hiss. And they have territories. Now, before everything was fine, I'm talking in the last couple of months, they've seemed more territorial, more possessive of, an area. They hiss at each other. They sneak up on each other. they're not as pleasant as they used to be. Now, that is not because there's yelling and screaming going on in our house and it's chaotic. That's not the case. Our house is very calm. There's no yelling, no screaming, no arguments. It doesn't happen here. So it's not like it's human induced. Now, the dogs, the same thing. We've noticed that the dogs are a little bit more on edge, a little more grumpy, and they seem more territorial, and they seem a little more aggressive toward each other. And at night, you can hear, one dog telling the other dog, knock it off. You bother me. Get out of my way. You can hear that at night. The cows out in the field. We have girl cows that are headbutting and pushing around other girl cows. We've got little bulls that are going headbutting other little bulls. And then you look at what you're talking about, you see more road rage. I've seen it. You see more people being aggressive on the road. I've seen it. And you see the stories about chaos on college campuses. So when we come back, Rick, tell us a little bit more about what is going on and what you think may be causing this. Doc Rams with us, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So, Rick, I was describing this on-guard behavior that we see in the animals on the farm, and behavior that we see people exhibiting, in public. Do you think the cause is outside the earth?
I can't even understand what you're saying. I'm so sorry about this interference on our line.
Rick, what I was saying is, do you think that the behavior that I described...
Oh, yes, the cats, yes. Now I get what you're saying. Yes, that even the tops of all the trees are showing this electron bombardment and kill. It is damaging everything. We are absolutely going through some cyclic changes on Earth, and weather and the ocean currents are just a single part of it. What is, I just posted, and I want to read this. It's called Slow Kill. Why are the controllers poisoning us? And I do a quote. When your earnings are exhausted on food and shelter, your laborers are no longer viewed as an opportunity for economic advancement, but rather as an act of self-preservation. In the real world, that's called slavery.
I agree totally. Okay, so, Rick...
We're in a war right now, and I cannot put a face on the enemy yet. Amazon and my Ingram, by the way, everybody, thank you for buying your books directly from me. I'm a small mom and pop, and if you buy them from me, they will be autographed. I am telling you, there is a war. I cannot put a face on it because Amazon is just typical, like they're trying to privatize water. And in Williams, Oregon, they gave me a survey, and I told them about how third graders should run a laboratory, learn how to test their own water before they even start grade school, and then teach the first graders how they did it, and then show the first graders how to explain it to their parents. It's a whole revisioning of everything that we know and do. Mm-hmm. A complete turning around of our behavior and so on. And all the weather, this electrons, the irritability of your animals, all of it is related to your consciousness and what is happening at this very moment. Time to wake up.
Rick, I was thinking about, as we were talking before, I was thinking about the moon surface. It's all banged up. It's been hit by meteorites and other objects, and you see the craters as a result. Do we have any technology that if an object is coming toward us and it's significant in size to do damage, do we have a technology to deflect it, change its path, blow it up, make it into smaller bits? Do we have any of that technology right now?
Well, we have what we believe might work, but Maxwell Smart put it, missed it by that much, and the Earth's gone. We're in a situation right now where I can't tell you how the second shoe is going to fall. I can tell you it is going to fall, and you can count on that. But when and what, I haven't got a clue. I would begin your sustainable lifeboat around sewage management and water. Recycle. That's a good place to always start your children's education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things that I've been toying with the idea of is since we have a septic system going forward, I was thinking, well, I don't have the problem right now, but in the future, if I did, I should probably have a trash pump, a pump that could pump out the septic system run by let's say a gasoline engine. They sell these things at Harbor Freight. And maybe I need to pump out the septic tank and put it into a lagoon and let the sun disinfect it. And then, because I'm not concerned about chemicals in what we put in there, maybe that would be used for fertilizer if we had no other choice. Just a thought.
It's the way he survived on Mars in the movie, and that is literally the way it's going to become here.
Doc Ram, thanks so much for being with us, class. If you'd like to go to Richard Allen Miller's website, docram.com. That's his Facebook page. It'll take you to where you need to go, and you'll be able to buy his books from there.